The continuation of bomb material production by India is naturally going to lead Pakistan to continue or to accelerate its fissile material production. It's going to keep China on edge and create the possibility of an even faster nuclear arms race in Asia.
Right now, there are only 3 countries in the world whose nuclear arsenals are growing. They're China, India, and Pakistan. India and Pakistan and China are all pursuing new ballistic missiles that carry nuclear weapons. All 3 of these countries are in the process of flight testing and putting into play cruise missiles.
These arguments won backing outside the non-proliferation community and won over some very influential figures in Washington.
Some very, very important people believe religiously that this was going to be the end of the nuclear non-proliferation regime as we knew it, that the sky was falling, that this was the end of the world. I'm talking about extremely important people. Senator Sam Nunn, who is totally against making any exception for fear that it will weaken the architecture of the nuclear non-proliferation system, and I respect that. I respect his opinion. President Jimmy Carter.
Supporters of the deal mounted a strong defense.
In this case, it was India is a different kettle of fish, that an exception should be made. India had never proliferated beyond its own borders. India had been extremely responsible in developing its nuclear program.
India is perceived as different. I mean, India is a democracy, civilian control of the nuclear weapons program. I think can be trusted to basically use this for civilian purpose.
But supporters had to tread carefully. Nuclear non-proliferation is an issue that resonates across America. Worries of a nuclear holocaust were firmly etched into the American psyche during the Cold Wars. When the Indo-U.S. deal was being put together, the U.S. was quarreling at the same time with Iran, another suspected nuclear power and an ally of India.
There were stories about Indian cooperation and working more closely with Iran that upset some of the members on the Hill, and they had serious questions about why we would seek to provide concessions to India on this nuclear issue with a country like India that was prepared to do business with Iran, a country that's in many quarters perceived to be an enemy or at least an adversary of the United States.
Because it is an idea that comports.
To advance their case and to build popular and intellectual support, advocates of the nuclear deal enlisted a host of foreign policy experts.
It was extremely important for people like William S. Cohen, for people like Carl Inderfirth, Ambassador Thomas Pickering, Dennis Klux, Ambassador Frank G. Wisner, people that had true regard and respect up on Capitol Hill, to be able to make their views known that no, in this instance we can make an exception. This will not weaken the nuclear non-proliferation architecture. In fact, this will strengthen the nuclear non-proliferation architecture because it will bring India into the international mainstream.
One place that needed to be won over quickly was the U.S. Congress. For the deal to go forward, the law blocking nuclear trade with India had to be changed. Sensing opposition from key members of Congress, the Bush administration wasted no time in trying to placate them.
We announced the agreement on July 18th, 2005, and then when we came before the Congress in March, April, and May of 2006, after President Bush's state visit to Delhi in early March 2006, there was a considerable, we thought, amount of opposition in the Congress. We had to go up for hearings. Secretary Rice and myself both testified on behalf of the deal, and I negotiated the July 18th understanding, and therefore spent most of that afternoon of the 18th and all of the 19th on the phone with members of Congress trying to explain what we'd done.
It was a very elaborate charm campaign that targeted nearly the entire Congress.
We also took the time to speak to every member of Congress. I think I spoke to well over half of the United States Senate. I spoke to scores of members of the House of Representatives. We went up time and again to patiently answer the questions that had been put to us.
I think the administration had to really work overtime, trying to convince people that we could conclude this deal in a responsible way, that we could have this deal with India and still protect the global non-proliferation regime.
The campaign wasn't restricted to convincing Congress. The deal was promoted in the media as well. Supporters wrote op-ed pieces in newspapers across the country, from Boston to San Francisco.
We were able to debate the non-proliferation experts that were against this deal. We went on television, had televised debates. I had a debate on one of our national television programs with a friend of mine who was against the agreement.
Slowly, the Bush administration began building support for the deal. Advocates stuck to a script that kept the message focused.
We basically made three arguments, which I thought, were good arguments to make. First, that this is critical at this juncture in the bilateral relationship. The relationship cannot move forward if we don't deal with this problem. That was the first. The second was, we are not just investing in a nuclear sector in India, we are investing in India. And we are investing in strengthening India's national growth, building it up as a great power, because that is in U.S. national interest. And the third argument was that bringing India into the global non-proliferation regime was very important for the long-term safety of both the United States and India. And I think collectively these three arguments won the day.
Even critics acknowledged that the other side made a strong case.
The frame that was set for this decision was India is a responsible country. It shouldn't be constrained. The problem with proliferation lies elsewhere, and there are profits to be made. And those are powerful arguments.
Legislation to make the U.S.-India deal possible was introduced in the U.S. Congress in January 2006. Known as the Hyde Act, the bill's main goal was to lift a 32-year ban on transferring nuclear fuel and reactors to India.
And the big promoters of that, we have to give credit to Tom Lantos, who is no longer with us, to Henry Hyde, two great congressmen, both of whom are not any longer with us.
Senator Richard Lugar of Indiana introduced the companion bill. The deal's other high-powered supporters included Delaware Senator Joe Biden, who would become the Vice President of the United States. Among those supporters who proposed changes to the bill was the junior senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, who would become America's first president of African descent.
Senator Obama was very much involved in committee deliberations on the bill, and he offered some strengthening amendments that would be protective of non-proliferation equities.
Most members of the India caucus worked for the passage of the bill. A caucus is an informal group of like-minded legislators. The India caucus is one of the largest such groups in Congress, with about 200 members in the House and 40 in the Senate, and it has been in existence since the early 1990s. The vote in the House took place in July 2006. In November, the Senate voted on it. Much to the delight of its supporters, the Hyde Act won by big margins in both chambers.
In the end, what matters is the outcome. And a 359 to 68 vote in the House of Representatives in favor of the Hyde Act, in an 85 to 12 vote in the United States Senate in favor of the Hyde Act, that is pretty overwhelming support, both by the Republicans and by the Democrats, in favor of a deeper relationship, a more partnering relationship with India.
And I thought, frankly, that if we won this vote, it would be by a very slim margin. We were very, very gratified that at the end of the day, after the members of Congress had taken the time to research it and look at it in detail, they agreed with us, the vast majority of members, Democrats and Republicans, that this deal made sense for a future relationship between India and the United States.